Emeritus Bob Hiro Suzuki. I would like to thank Mrs. Suzuki and the Suzuki family for allowing us the honor of hosting today's memorial to not only commemorate the one-year anniversary of his passing, but to celebrate his life. Dr. Suzuki was a pioneering educational leader and advocate for social justice. He served as the fourth president of Cal Poly Pomona from 1991 to 2003. Beyond his role as a visionary leader, he was a loving husband, a father to 3 children, Carol, Blake, and Michael, and grandfather to 5 beautiful grandchildren. We gather today in a space that speaks to who Dr. Suzuki was: calm, thoughtful, and visionary. His garden, the Aratani Japanese garden, is more than a place of beauty. It's a symbol of Dr. Suzuki, enduring influence, a quiet strength that helped shape this campus and the people within it. To this day, you can look around this campus and see his fingerprints, his love for our students, and his educational brilliance. He was a builder of programs, a champion of diversity, a mentor, a trailblazer, and above all else, a servant leader who believed deeply in the transformative power of education. Throughout this morning's program, we'll hear reflections from colleagues, friends, and family members, voices that carry the love, admiration, and deep respect for what he inspired in all of us. Thank you for being here to honor his life, to share his memory, and to celebrate the legacy he leaves behind. And now it's my privilege to invite Cal Poly Pomona's current president, Dr. Soraya Coley, to say a few words.
Thank you, Francis. And I want to begin by acknowledging Ms. Agnes Suzuki. I want to give as well as the members of the family who joined us this afternoon. And there is no place, as Francis was saying, that is more appropriate than in order to celebrate Bob's life and legacy than in this area. As Francis mentioned, he was responsible for creating this magnificent setting of the Aratani Japanese garden, which is across from this building. And in fact, we are surrounded by beauty, beauty that he brought to our campus. We're surrounded by life and art and friends. And in this moment, we get to experience the same serenity and splendor that Bob did when he was still with us. Today, we honor Bob's integrity, his humility, and his quiet strength that left a lasting imprint on this campus and on the countless lives he touched. It is indeed an honor to offer a few words in memory of Dr. Suzuki. He was a visionary leader, a fierce advocate for equity and access, and a deeply respected colleague. Bob led our university during a time of transformation, growth, and development. His presidency was marked by an unwavering commitment to academic excellence, inclusivity, and student success, hallmarks that I aspired to build upon during my own tenure. And like Bob, I encountered challenges due to the color of my skin, the race of my parents, and the timing of my birth. And knowing this provided me with an even deeper perspective of seeing him for what he really stood for. Bob was a champion for others and a hero to those who looked up to him. He was a fighter for the unseen and a fighter for the neglected. He triumphed over one of the darkest chapters in American history and channeled his lived experience into a life that made room for others. At a time when very few Asian Americans were seen in the halls of engineering or academic leadership, Bob stood tall, earning his doctorate from UCLA in aeronautics and astronautics. He broke barriers, and he never stopped reaching back to lift others up. Pomona, Bob's impact was both deep and wide. He was a staunch champion of diversity, and under his leadership, the university expanded its outreach, bolstered student support services, and strengthened ties to the broader community. He helped secure Cal Poly Pomona's designation as a Hispanic serving institution, opening doors of opportunity for generations of students. Bob understood the importance of representation. As one of the first Asian American university presidents in the CSU system, he used his voice to advance equity across the state and our nation. He was instrumental in founding and growing the Asian Pacific Americans in Higher Education organization, ensuring that leadership looked more like the students we served. But for all of his achievements, Bob never sought the spotlight. He listened more than he spoke. He led with empathy, and he inspired loyalty through consistency, through fairness, and a deep belief in the mission of public education. Those of us who walk the grounds of Cal Poly Pomona today are living in the legacy he built. From the programs he launched, to the students he inspired, to the colleagues he mentored. Bob Suzuki's influence continues to shape who we are and who we aspire to be. So as we remember Bob today, we may also carry forward his example, an example of leadership that was rooted in justice, rooted in the scholarship, grounded in service, and of a life dedicated to lifting others. May his memory continue to guide us.
Thank you, President Coley, for sharing those words of Dr. Suzuki's profound impact. Now I would like to invite Dr. Kenyon Chen, a friend and mentee of Dr. Suzuki and a family friend to the Suzuki family. Dr. Kenyon Chen is a distinguished educational leader and social justice advocate. He has had a long career in higher education, including recently serving as the Chancellor of the University of Washington, Bothell. Dr. Kenyon Chen.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here and see so many friends that Bob has touched over these years, from his community life to Cal State LA, Northridge, here at Cal Poly Pomona. It's just wonderful to see all of you and for us to celebrate his life. I'm pleased here to speak on behalf of my friend and mentor, Bob Suzuki. But it's difficult to summarize over 60-year impact Bob had on my life. I met Bob and Agnes around 1970 when I was an undergraduate at UCLA, and Bob was an engineering professor at USC. At the time, he was chairing a group led by the Greater Pasadena JCL to develop curriculum materials for elementary school teachers to use to teach about the contributions of Asian Americans in the United States. It is no exaggeration to say that Bob and Agnes were the pioneers in the fight for inclusion of Asian American history in our schools.
Yes.
But before I go on, I want to stop and thank Blake, Michael, Carol, for letting us borrow your father. I know that he spent more hours than he should mentoring many people in this gathering today and more, working with his students, advocating for his community, and so much more. I want to thank you for letting us borrow your dad for all that time. Also, I want us to acknowledge Agnes as an equal partner and mentor on all the activities that Bob did as well. I don't think there's a Bob without an Agnes. Agnes and Bob are truly the role model for the activist marriage. Bob's impact on many of us is immeasurable. His leadership in transforming American higher education can be seen by the impact that he's had across this nation that I could spend hours talking to you about. Bob was always there for me and others as I grew from a graduate student to a professor to a university president. He taught me how to keep focused on social justice while transforming the institutions that I was working at. He showed me, by his example, how you needed to make difficult decisions, sometimes detrimental to your own career, to further our fight for diversity, equity, and inclusion. 3 words that I'm still proud to say despite our current political environment. He taught me one effective method of social change is to enter the heart of the beast and force it to change from within, to become part of a university administration so you can use the leverages of power to transform the institution. Bob would be absolutely appalled at what is happening to the universities today. He would be outraged by the calls to shut down programs and that support faculty, students, and staff of color. He would be on the front lines of protest right now to protect our rights to be part of the American story, and he would be at the front of the fight to keep them from banning books on Asian Americans in our schools and libraries. He would not stand for any of this, and he would not stand for us to be silenced once again. I can tell you for certain that he would be demanding that universities stand up against the tyranny and racism that we are seeing now, and he would be on the streets with the rest of us. As we celebrate Bob's life today, make no mistake, Bob would not want us to just celebrate his life, but he would want us to rededicate our lives to the fight for social justice at the universities and in our communities. So I ask on behalf of Bob, are you ready to stand up for justice?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you ready to stand up for justice?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It
Woo!
was wonderful to have Bob in my life.
Woo!
Thank you, Dr. Chan. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Jose Gomez to share a few words. Dr. Gomez is the current president of Pasadena City College. He served as student body president during Dr. Suzuki's tenure as president of Cal Poly Pomona.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
First and foremost, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Suzuki's family, friends, and loved ones for sharing him with all of us, his students. Your generosity in supporting him allowed thousands of students like myself to benefit profoundly from his wisdom, his compassion, and his visionary leadership. It's with profound gratitude and deep humility that I stand before you this morning. Being chosen to represent the thousands of students, probably hundreds of thousands, when you think about his leadership at institutions throughout his 50, 60 plus years in higher education. Being chosen to represent all of those students whose lives were touched and transformed by Dr. Bob Suzuki is a tremendous honor and one that fills me with both pride and a deep sense of responsibility. I first met Dr. Suzuki in 1991. It's amazing what how the circle of the universe and of life works. It was a time filled with great anticipation and uncertainty. For me, as a young student, I had just begun my term as student body president at Cal Poly Pomona, and he had just assumed the presidency of Cal Poly Pomona. What struck me immediately about President Suzuki was his real, authentic commitment to student success, his genuine warmth, and his willingness to listen, truly listen to our voices. In fact, I can still remember the first day that I met him. It was his first day on campus as president of the university. And back then, the student government offices were in the old Kellogg stables. And he actually came down from the old administration building, which is, I think, called Building 1. And he came all the way down to the stables to meet with me and to talk with me. That was the first of many times when he openly invited students into important conversations, empowering us to shape the university experience and ensuring that our perspectives mattered. You've probably heard about all his accomplishments as a leader here at Cal Poly Pomona. He raised, probably over $150 million. He oversaw critical construction projects such as the state-of-the-art engineering building. That was actually one of the projects that I was able to work with him on as an alum of Cal Poly Pomona. The Rainbird BioTrek Learning Center, and even creating the iPoly High School and numerous cultural centers on this campus. These were things that at that time were new and transformative. However, as a former student, what made these achievements so meaningful was how they directly improved our education, how they enriched our campus life and broadened our opportunities. Each facility represented more than just bricks and mortar. They symbolized his commitment to creating spaces where students were welcome, valued, and inspired. Welcome, valued, and inspired. His investment in diversity and inclusion was truly transformative. He taught us that equity wasn't merely an ideal, but a practical and necessary foundation for excellence in education. He was talking about this before anybody else was talking about this. These efforts changed campus culture here at Cal Poly Pomona, making us more thoughtful, more understanding, and better prepared to face a diverse and complex world. But Dr. Suzuki was more than just a president to me. He was a profound mentor whose influence shaped my path significantly. When I embarked on my own journey in higher education administration, it was his example that guided me. When I started work as an associate, actually as an assistant vice president at Cal State LA, I was fortunate that President Suzuki actually lived walking distance from Cal State LA. Now, that was great for me because I could, just call him up and see him anytime I wanted. But it was also his opportunity to reach out to me. When you're a student and you graduate and you go off into the world, sometimes you lose touch with people. But I remember when I got an email and phone call from President Suzuki saying, hey, I live right down the street from you, and we need to get together. And for lunch? I'd say, absolutely, let's get together for lunch. We put it on the schedule, and he'd call me that morning, and he'd say, you're coming to pick me up, right? And I said, absolutely, I'm coming to pick you up. Now, you've got to understand that when you have such a close relationship with somebody, it's like when you go home for Christmas or the holidays with your family, and you and all your siblings immediately revert back to the pecking order that you were in when you were growing up. So I immediately reverted back to his student, and he immediately reverted back to the, my professor, my president. And so, he probably knew that I sometimes would run late, so he would remind me one time I had to pick him up, and I would pick him up, and then of course, I never got to pick the restaurant. Because he probably remembered when I was a student, I didn't get to really go to fancy restaurants until he took me to those restaurants. I mean, he was the guy that broadened sort of my perspective on things by taking me to these places that I had never been to before. So we were still sort of in that kind of situation. I remember he'd take me to lunch, and he would order for us. And that was because he was real disciplined, and he probably thought, because he had a special diet. He probably looked at my diet, and he remembered my diet, and thought, I got to take care of this guy. Man, he's ordering some stuff. I mean, I never got to tell him. So I'm going to tell you now, President City, some of that stuff, man, was, it was some crazy food. That special stuff, he had that special diet. But anyway, I ate it. It was good. But anyway, we were able to develop an amazing relationship. Almost like, an uncle and nephew, or a grandparent, grandson. I mean, I never had a father, so, it was real special to have somebody who, really just cared about me and wanted to give me really good advice. I eventually became a college president, and that's when I really cherished his guidance. I think we've heard about his humility, his vision, and his courage, but I actually got to hear him talk about leadership and service to others in a way that most people didn't get a chance to. Later in life, he lived near my home and Pasadena City College, where I got the opportunity to serve as president. I didn't remember that this was the very city where he had begun his distinguished career in higher education. If you recall, he got his doctorate at Caltech, and he started teaching at USC. And during that entire time, before he left to the University of Massachusetts, he lived in Pasadena. And what was fascinating about that was that he was on the ground floor of the civil rights movement during this time. He was on the advisory board that was trying to craft a desegregation plan in the city of Pasadena, in Pasadena Unified School District. But one of the things that I learned from President Suzuki and Mrs. Suzuki during one of my visits to the facility where he was that they started Asian American Studies at Pasadena City College. And I said, what do you mean you taught there. And I said, wait a second, you taught at Pasadena City College? And they sort of both looked at each other, and they said, well, yeah, but it was a little subversive how we did it. And if you know President Suzuki, man, you don't think of him as being subversive, right? He's such a dignified, gentleman, right? But if you could believe this, back then, you couldn't teach these things, not even at Pasadena City College, particularly at that time and during this environment. They actually enrolled as students. They enrolled as students with a collaborator who was teaching a course, I believe, on Black history. And this course was created, right, so that speakers could come into the course and then teach in the course. So President Suzuki and Mrs. Suzuki were actual students in the course, but they were actually there to teach Asian American studies. Isn't that an amazing story? And I just kept coming back for more to listen about these stories about Pasadena. He knew people at Pasadena City College from decades before, and so I really appreciated that. But he also, of course, offered invaluable insights into higher education leadership, and he reminded me about the importance of integrity, compassion, and purpose in everything that we do. Having a mentor like Dr. Suzuki really was life-changing to me. He taught me how to navigate complex pathways in higher ed. He gave me reassurance about myself when I doubted myself. He provided wisdom when I faced difficult decisions, and most importantly, encouragement when my journey was daunting. President Suzuki did all these things, not just for me, but for countless others. He showed us how powerful education can be, not just as a tool for individual advancement, but as a transformative force for communities and society. Dr. Suzuki's legacy is not merely found in the extraordinary changes he made at Cal Poly Pomona or in the halls of academia. His true legacy lives on within each student whose life he touched, each leader he inspired, and every person who benefited from his courageous advocacy for justice and equality. Today, as we celebrate and honor Bob Suzuki, I express my deepest gratitude, not just for myself, but on behalf of the thousands of students who were forever changed by his remarkable life and enduring legacy. Thank you, Dr. Suzuki, for guiding our way, for believing in us, and for showing us what it truly means to lead with your heart. I just want to say one last thing. The last words that I exchanged with President Suzuki. I was leaving him. This must have been about a couple of weeks before he passed. And he was sitting down. I gave him a big hug. I kissed him on the head and I said, President Suzuki, I love you. And he said back to me, Jose, I love you too. So I say to you, please say that you love, tell the people that you love them, because you never know when that might be the last time you see them. Thank you, President Suzuki.
She has remained as a close family friend of the family over the past few years. Last year, she received the Provost Award for Excellence in Service for her commitment to promoting social justice and initiating conversations that concern underrepresented communities. All values that I believe Dr. Suzuki lived.
Good morning, everyone. So great to have this wonderful reunion of friends and families and colleagues here to celebrate the life of President Emeritus Bob Suzuki and a wonderful mentor and friend. One of the things I wanted to share is that Cal Poly Pomona was my very first job, straight out of grad school from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And at the time, when I told a friend of mine, Franklin Odo, that I was offered a position, he said, "Oh my gosh, you get to work with Bob Suzuki." And I said, "Really?" And I said, "Who is Bob Suzuki?" He's like, "You don't know Bob Suzuki?" So I looked him up, and he was one of the revered pioneers who wrote about the model minority stereotype and myth. He established a multitude of programs that you've heard about today, but also in Massachusetts, Amherst, at Cal State University Northridge, and Pasadena Community College, I learned something today, and here at Cal Poly Pomona that Dr. Gomez spoke about. He is one that was committed to social justice, diversity, equity, even before it was a term that people used. And he was someone that cultivated a culture of care. And for me, speaking about Bob, it's hard for me to speak about Bob without speaking about Agnes. Because as Kenyon stated, Bob and Agnes were a duo. And for me, they were both of my mentors. And I don't think I would have gotten as close to Bob as it wasn't for Agnes. And the relationship that we fostered when I was a brand new professor here at Cal Poly Pomona. My very first meeting with Bob, and I've told this story many times, so excuse me if you heard it before, is I was getting my office set up in Building 5. And I see this man in a suit walking around, kind of loitering in the hallways. And I thought, is this a book salesman? Because there were all these book salespeople all the time trying to get the doctor classes. And so I went up to him and I said, "Hi, can I help you?" And he said, "Yes, I'm Bob Suzuki." And I said, "Okay." And then "Oh, you're Bob Suzuki." He said, "Yes, I'm the president of this family." I said, "Oh, my name is Mary, and I was told to talk to you." You know, he never made me feel like I was a junior faculty and he was the president. He always made me feel like, I don't know, in some very strange way, like my dad. He reminded me so much of my father. His demeanor, the way he spoke, the seriousness of it, but really the depth of his knowledge and the depth of his compassion. And so from there, with Agnes, they were telling me when I was looking for a home, you need to move to Alhambra. And I said, why should I go to Alhambra? She's like, it's a great place, wonderful community, you need to go. So we looked, and we did end up buying a house in Alhambra. About, I think 2 or 3 weeks after I gave the birth of my first child, who knocks on my door? Bob and Agnes. They ring the doorbell, I answer, and I said, oh my gosh, the president and the first lady are at my door. And they said, hey, how's it going? How's the baby? How are you feeling? They were there to just check on me as like just caring almost my parents, because my parents weren't around at that time. Later on, about a month or 2 after, I decided as I'm strolling Kyra, my oldest, around, who is now 24 years old, I said, I'm going to go by their house, because they stopped at my house. So I stopped at their house, and I rang the doorbell, and Bob, in his flannel pajama bottoms and a t-shirt, answers the door, and he said, hey, you want some muffins? That's the kind of people that Bob and Agnes were, for me, and for so many others, as you have heard today, of welcoming me into their lives, not just in a transactional way. They were both, and Bob was a relational person. He wanted to maintain this relationship of mentorship. You know, he stressed the importance of pipeline. And I think because of that, when the Wedland Endowed Chair was kind of here in limbo a little bit, we talked about moving it to the College of Letters and Social Sciences with then Dean Barbara Way. And he allowed me the opportunity to kind of launch the very first regional Association for Asian American Conference here at Cal Poly Pomona. And I remember when I asked him, he made me work for it. He was not one, he had strong ethical boundaries. He had a very strong conviction of work and value. And he helped me strategize on the folks that I needed to talk to get buy-in. He taught me lessons that I still carry with me today. And from there, I got to know all the vice presidents. And then from then, I was no longer really afraid. There was no them and us and them. We were all one university. And I think Bob really taught me the value of cultivating relationships with people all across, from staff to faculty to administrators. And I still hold on to that. From there, he also came and spoke to my class. He spoke to young student leaders, the peer mentoring program that we started, where he would give guest lectures. And because of his generosity, the following presidents of President Ortiz and President Coley, they all came to our class and spoke for the peer mentors. He also developed and helped one of the founding members of LEAP, Leadership Education for Asia Pacific Islander. Linda, who is executive director or president, is here today. And I went through that. He encouraged me to go through this pipeline of learning about how do you become an effective, caring leader for our community. And he really encouraged coalition building. He was not just for Asian Americans. He was for Latinos, Chicanos, African Americans, indigenous communities, and communities of color. And I think from him, I really saw the value from his lessons that he shared. He and Agnes shared of their struggles in Massachusetts, their struggles at CSUN, their struggles just, at the boycotts of the grape picking, my brain's not working today, but you know what I mean. When we were all with Cesar Chavez and Larry Itler and Dolores Huertas, and they were very much on the ground with the community and really encouraged us to be a part of that as well. The lessons learned from Bob is pipeline. I think if it wasn't for Bob, I would never have pursued becoming an associate dean in the College of Environmental Design, and the dean is here from that college as well. He planted a seed for me, is that just like many of the fellow speakers before me, you have to work from within. You have to create a pipeline, but also open doors for other people to walk into. He showed me, not just told me, he showed me how to do it through his actions, through his words. He modeled the way we can cultivate a culture of care for each other and how we can elevate others and not just ourselves. As many first talked about, he was not about someone being on the spotlight. In fact, he loved to give spotlight. He loved to celebrate others. But I have to credit Agnes for that. I think Agnes taught him a lot of those things. Agnes was there whispering, but always to help champion for diversity, always to help champion for inclusion. And also for women. I mean, for as an Asian American woman in higher ed, having someone like her and still having someone like her is a tremendous gift. And one of the beautiful things with Bob as being president, he couldn't do that for me, but I was very lucky that Agnes was there for me. And because of that relationship, after I got tenure, he retired. I think he was waiting for me to get tenure. He retired, but I stayed in touch. And not because I had to or I had an obligation to. I wanted to. It was a gift. I was so lucky that they embraced me. I was so lucky that I got to meet their family. And I'm so lucky that they let me be a part of their lives. I got to hear about him hiking Machu Picchu, about going to Antarctica. I got to hear about how proud he was of his children and his grandkids, and shared stories that they probably wouldn't want me to share, about things that he was happy about and things that he was worried about, and then asked me for suggestions and thoughts. He was such a caring father and a caring grandfather as well. We all know him as someone who worked at a university, led the university, mentored so many of us, but he also worked with our communities too. Even after he retired, he was active in Alhambra and San Diego Valley. I'm so forever grateful that I got to be a part of their lives and continue to be a part of their lives. And seeing the journey of the person he is and he was, I say is because having lost my parents, I always say they're not here on earth, but they're still around. I still feel loved. And I know that many of us who are close to him still feel him as well. I want to say, in closing, that Bob broke down barriers. Bob built bridges. Bob created opportunities, but he also broke down so many barriers. So those of us here today could continue the work. And as Kenyon stated, I think Bob would be, and he was very frustrated before he passed away with everything that was going on. And I think he really would count on us to continue the fight and not to give up. And in his legacy, and in the legacy of all that he's done for so many of us, from Cal State Northridge to Amherst, I'm Facebook Living because people in Boston couldn't be here and asked us to do this, and to countless of other community leaders and professionals whose lives he has touched. I know for a fact that he would want us to continue the fight with care and compassion and to build coalition. And so thank you, Agnes, so much for letting me be a part of your life. And thank you, Bob, for always having the best, in my daughter's word, the best gluten-free pie she's ever
Thank you, Mary. I didn't have the privilege of meeting Dr. Suzuki, but I was a beneficiary of his vision. I was actually a participant in the LEAP program over 25 years ago. Now, as we heard over and over again today, the partnership and the role Agnes played. In many ways, the presidency is not possible without a loving and supportive family. It is now my privilege to invite members of the Suzuki family to say a few words. Carol, Blake, and Michael. And three beautiful children.
You got this. I believe in you, Dad. You got this. You can do this, Uncle Blake.
Okay, thank you.
You can do this, good day.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here to celebrate the life and legacy of my father. My earliest memories of my dad are out on a boat in the middle of a lake in Washington State, fishing for trout. That love of fishing stayed with him, passed down to me, and now to my daughter. When I think about this life, fishing feels like a fitting metaphor. It demands patience, persistence, and focus. Qualities that defines his journey, from the tournament camps of his early childhood, to growing up on a farm in Spokane, and to eventually becoming president here at Cal Poly Pomona. His path required all of that before. But there's one trait often associated with fishing that my father never quite adopted, that of being quiet. He wasn't quiet when something needed to be said or done. Silence doesn't create change. It doesn't open doors. And it certainly doesn't get you to the upper echelons of academia or anywhere else that matters. Both of our parents taught us that when you see injustice, you speak up, you organize, you act. And I know many of you were shaped by that same spirit. I also remember our home as a gathering place, filled with people from all walks of life, discussing politics, debating strategy, organizing for causes they believed in. My siblings and I tagged along to rallies and demonstrations and joined spirited conversations around the dinner table. In that environment, our parents taught us the value of showing up, of claiming a seat at the table, not just for yourself, but for your community. I know many of you were inspired by them to do the same. On a more personal note, I want to share a story from when I was a student here at Cal Poly Pomona. This was early in my dad's presidency. I enrolled sort of because my dad wanted me to, and so it was sort of out of obligation, not necessarily out of excitement. I wasn't eager to attend a university where my father was president with all the expectations that came with that. But over time, I found real value in the coursework and faculty, and I came to appreciate the university on my own terms. When I graduated and received my diploma from him, I felt proud, not just of what I had achieved, but what he had built. A few weeks ago, I accepted a new award on this behalf of my wife. I heard many stories from people I can't touch. They didn't just speak of his titles or accomplishments. They spoke of how he made them feel seen, heard, and acknowledged. That's the legacy he is. Not just the roles he held or awards he received, but the lives he changed. And in the end, that's what matters most.
Okay, I'm gonna try to get through this, and I'm not keeping everybody here forever as well. Many of us know grief passes through us in stages. In the days and weeks following our father's death, I thought often about the days and moments preceding it. What happened, what didn't, what people did or didn't do, and even more so, what I did and didn't do. However, at some point, I came to terms with the fact that our lives are made of many moments, and all we can do is the best we are able to in each moment. After this, my thoughts shifted more to my dad's life and how truly amazing it was. Having been born in a small brick building in Portland attended by a midwife, sent to camps as a child, raised on a farm and schooled in a one-room schoolhouse at Davis, Washington. He went on to accomplish all of the amazing things you have spoken of today. He went through so many struggles, and yet he graduated from UC Berkeley. He got his doctorate in aeronautic engineering at Caltech, and all of the lives that he impacted. My brother spoke to you of how my father and mother raised us in an environment that informed our worldview. But it's not just what they fought for, it is how they lived. It is how they lived every moment and modeled for us how to live constantly with the ethical principles that they endorsed. They allowed me to understand what it means to constantly seek out my ethical North Star, even if imperfectly, and even when it's hard. In the months leading up to today, I started to think more about my relationship with my dad, what he meant to me, and what I wanted this moment to be about. Interestingly, the saying Ho'oponopono showed up several times during these months. And I decided it embodied what I wanted to end with today. This is not really for you all, but it's for my dad. And Ho'oponopono, I think a lot of people heard it on the tip recently. With regard to interacting with a dying person, but it's actually an ancient practice of reconciliation, and that's where I heard about it first. And consists of 4 key elements. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. I'm sorry, Dad, for all the things I wish I would have done better for you, for the times I wish I could have been there for you but wasn't, and for all the things I wish I would have done with you while I had the chance. I don't think we ever have enough time. I think we always want more. Please forgive me, I did the best that I could do at the time. I regret that at the time I couldn't know everything that I would have liked to. Thank you for all the ways in which you supported me, loved me, and worked to create a world in which I have the privilege to thrive. I love you for all those things and more.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming from near and far to share the moment today and honor our legacy of my father left us. We appreciate the love and support.
your father with us. We are forever grateful. Thank you to everyone who shared their memories and reflections today. Each story has helped illuminate the depth of Dr. Bob Suzuki's legacy, his courage, his wisdom, and his profound commitment to equity and education and social justice. Dr. Suzuki believed in creating space for others, in lifting people up, and in letting the work speak for itself. And today, the work and the lives he touched speak volumes. As we leave this place and this garden, may we carry his example with us, his quiet determination, his fierce advocacy, and his belief in the potential of every student. Thank you for joining us in honoring a remarkable life. May his memory continue to inspire us, and may his legacy live on through the work we can do each day. I'd like to thank Agnes and the Suzuki family for allowing us to host this memorial today, and for sharing and allowing us to speak in enduring and profound ways. For those of you who have confirmed to join us at the restaurant at Kellogg Ranch for lunch, Bronco shuttles will be available to transport you back the hill. We're actually going to advise you to walk down this walkway back to the Bronco shuttles. This path up here is very slippery, and for those who need shuttle golf carts, please go in that direction. Jordan, if you raise your hand, you can find Jordan over there. So thank you again for joining us today, and I look forward to continuing at the restaurant at Kellogg Ranch. Thank you.